Hello, my amazing tribe. I'm excited to connect with you through this video. Hello, dear viewers. Get ready to expand your horizons as we delve into Witsenhausen's counterexample. Witsenhausen's counterexample, shown in the figure below, is a deceptively simple toy problem in decentralized stochastic control. It was formulated by Hans Witsenhausen in 1968. It is a counterexample to a natural conjecture that one can generalize a key result of centralized line quadratic Gaussian control systems set in a system with linear dynamics, Gaussian disturbance, and quadratic cost. Affine linear control laws are optimal to decentralized systems. Witsenhausen constructed a two-stage linear quadratic Gaussian system where two decisions are made by decision makers with decentralized information and showed that for this system, there exist nonlinear control laws that outperform all linear laws. The problem of finding the optimal control law remains unsolved. Get ready for an exciting exploration as we unravel the mysteries of statement of the counterexample. The statement of the counterexample is simple. Two controllers attempt to control the system by attempting to bring the state close to zero in exactly 2 time steps. The first controller observes the initial states. There is a cost on the input of the first controller, and a cost on the states after the input of the second controller. The input of the second controller is free, but it is based on noisy observations XZ of the states after the first controller's input. The second controller cannot communicate with the first controller and thus cannot observe either the original states or the input of the first controller. Thus the system dynamics are XXO. With the second controller's observation equation, IXZ, the objective is to minimize an expected cost function, E, where the expectation is taken over the randomness in the initial states and the observation noise Z, which are distributed independently. The observation noise Z is assumed to be distributed in a Gaussian manner, while the distribution of the initial state value differs depending on the particular version of the problem. The problem is to find control functions, UX and OE, that give at least as good a value of the objective function as do any other pair of control functions. Witsenhausen showed that the optimal functions UX and OE cannot be linear. Brace yourself for a captivating discussion on specific results of Witsenhausen as we explore its nuances and implications. Witsenhausen obtained the following Resolution optimum exists theorem 1. The optimal control law of the first controller is such that each 0 lemma 9. The exact solution is given for the case in which both controllers are constrained to be linear lemma 11. If X has a Gaussian distribution and if at least one of the controllers is constrained to be linear, then it is optimal for both controllers to be linear lemma 13. The exact nonlinear control laws are given for the case in which X has a 2-point symmetric distribution lemma 15. If X has a Gaussian distribution, for some values of the preference parameter K, a non-optimal nonlinear solution for the control laws is given which gives a lower value for the expected cost function than does the best linear pair of control laws theorem 2. In this chapter, we'll be unraveling the enigma of the significance of the problem and discovering its transformative power. The counterexample lies at the intersection of control theory and information theory. Due to its hardness, the problem of finding the optimal control law has also received attention from the theoretical computer science community. The importance of the problem was reflected upon in the 47th IEEE Conference on Decision and Control CDC 2008, Cancun, Mexico, where an entire session was dedicated to understanding the counterexample 40 years after it was first formulated. The problem is of conceptual significance in decentralized control because it shows that it is important for the controllers to communicate with each other implicitly in order to minimize the cost. This suggests that control actions in decentralized control may have a dual role, those of control and communication. Let's now venture into the realm of the hardness of the problem and explore the fascinating intricacies it holds. The hardness of the problem is attributed to the fact that information of the second controller depends on the decisions of the first controller. Variations considered by Tamer-Bassa show that the hardness is also because of the structure of the performance index and the coupling of different decision variables. It has also been shown that problems of the spirit of Witsenhausen's counterexample become simpler if the transmission delay along an external channel that connects the controllers is smaller than the propagation delay in the problem. However, this result requires the channels to be perfect and instantaneous, and hence is of limited applicability. In practical situations, the channel is always imperfect, and thus one cannot assume that decentralized control problems are simple in presence of external channels. A justification of the failure of attempts that discretize the problem came from the computer science literature. Christos Papadimitriou and John Tsitsikis showed that the discrete version of the counterexample is NP-complete. Let's now turn our gaze towards attempts at obtaining a solution and explore the fascinating connections it has to offer. A number of numerical attempts have been made to solve the counterexample. Focusing on a particular choice of problem parameters K0.25, researchers have obtained strategies by discretization and using neural networks. Further research, notably the work of Yuchi Ho and the work of Lee, Martin and Schemmer, has obtained slightly improved costs for the same parameter choice. The best-known numerical results for a variety of parameters, including the one mentioned previously, are obtained by a local search algorithm proposed by S.H. Tseng and A. Tang in 2017. The first probably approximately optimal strategies appeared in 2010. Grover, Park, Sahay, where information theory is used to understand the communication in the counterexample. The optimal solution of the counterexample is still an open problem. I'm here to provide you with the best information, so let me know what else you'd like to learn about.